Get out. James's voice was ice cold as he stood in the marble foyer, swirling whiskey in a crystal glass. His stance was casual, almost bored, like he was dismissing an employee rather than his wife of 8 years. Your things are already packed. I followed his gaze to the neatly arranged Louis Vuitton suitcases by the door, the ones he gifted me last Christmas, back when our life still felt like a fairy tale. My hands trembled, but I forced my voice to remain steady. So that's it? 8 years of marriage, and you're throwing me out like some disposable accessory? He smirked, taking a slow sip. Emma, let's not be dramatic. We both know this arrangement has run its course. Your inheritance helped build ClearTech into what it is today. Now that we're going public, I need someone more suitable by my side, someone who understands the industry. My stomach twisted. You mean someone like Melissa? James didn't even bother pretending. Melissa gets vision. She understands what it takes to build something revolutionary. You, he waved his glass dismissively, were perfect for the early days. The supportive wife, the generous investor. But ClearTech is worth $100 million now. We're playing in the big leagues. I let my gaze drift around the mansion, the sweeping staircase, the shimmering chandelier, the carefully curated artwork, all of it built with my family's money, my trust, my love. James glanced at his Rolex, another gift, bought with my inheritance. The board meets tomorrow to finalize the IPO. Melissa and I need to prep, so if we could wrap this up. I turned toward the suitcases, my heels clicking against the marble. Every step carried the weight of 6 years of sacrifice, the networking parties I hosted, the sleepless nights listening to his ambitions, the vacations we canceled because his work was more important. And yet, he thought he had won. You know what's funny? I asked, facing him. He raised an eyebrow, amused. What? You think you played this perfectly? His smirk widened. Haven't I? ClearTech is about to go public. I'm about to become one of the youngest tech billionaires in the country. And you, he shrugged, get whatever the prenup stipulates, which, if I recall correctly, isn't much. I smiled, a slow, knowing smile. Good luck with the IPO, James. I'm sure tomorrow will be interesting. His expression flickered, just for a moment. What's that supposed to mean? I grabbed my suitcases and strode out, letting the door close behind me with a satisfying finality. What James didn't know, what he had been too arrogant to even consider, was that I wasn't as naive as he thought. He assumed I had been blindly loving, foolishly trusting, but growing up in a business family had taught me one thing: trust was good, documentation was better. The $3 million he used to build ClearTech? I had notarized records of every cent, the early contracts, carefully preserved, proving I was more than just an investor, I was a founder. The late nights he claimed to be working? I had proof of far more interesting activities. But my real ace? That was something even James hadn't seen coming, something that would turn tomorrow's board meeting into a nightmare. At the Four Seasons, I sank into my suite's plush armchair, exhaling as I unpacked. My phone buzzed. Lauren, are you okay? Did you do it? Me, it's done. He kicked me out, just like we expected. Melissa's already moving in. Lauren, that smug bastard, he has no idea what's coming, does he? I stared at my laptop, where every damning document sat waiting. Me, no, he doesn't. I poured myself a glass of wine and watched the city lights flicker below. Once, I had believed in James, believed in his dreams. I had given him everything, my love, my money, my loyalty. And he had discarded me. But tomorrow, I would be the one pulling the strings. My phone buzzed again, an email from my lawyer. Sandra, everything's in place for tomorrow. Are you sure you want to do this? Once we move forward, there's no going back. I took a sip of wine, my smile unwavering. Me, oh, I've never been more sure. I thought about James's smug smile as he dismissed me, about the nights I spent alone while he was working late with Melissa, about how he believed he could use me and cast me aside like an afterthought. I'm sure, I replied, my fingers tightening around my phone. Let's show them what I'm really worth. Tomorrow, James would learn that his perfect plan had one fatal flaw, me, and I was done being underestimated. The next morning, as I strode into ClearTech's gleaming headquarters, the security guard did a double take. Mrs. Chen, oh, I mean, Mr. Wilson said you wouldn't be coming in anymore. I smiled, sliding my still active ID card across the desk. He was mistaken about a lot of things. The elevator ride to the top floor felt surreal. How many times had I visited James here, bringing him dinner during late nights, standing by his side at company events, the modern art on the walls, the sleek furniture in the reception area, it was all chosen with my money. Now, I was here for something else. As I approached the boardroom, I heard James's voice, steady and confident. Which is why this IPO will position ClearTech as the leading innovator in cloud security, our proprietary technology. I pushed open the door. The room fell silent. 12 board members turned to stare, their expressions shifting between shock and discomfort. At the head of the table, James stood frozen, his pitch interrupted. Beside him, Melissa's manicured fingers tightened around her notepad, her face paling. Emma. James recovered quickly, his smile tight. This is a private board meeting. You shouldn't be here. I walked to the far end of the table and placed my laptop down with deliberate calm. Actually, I have every right to be here. As a major stakeholder in ClearTech, I think the board should hear what I have to say before voting on the IPO. One of the senior board members, Richard, leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Mrs. Wilson, we were under the impression that you had no official role in the company. It's Ms. Chen, I corrected, meeting his gaze. And that impression was incorrect. In fact, there's quite a lot about ClearTech that needs clarification. James's confidence flickered. Emma, don't do this. Whatever you think you have. I connected my laptop to the conference screen. The first document appeared, projected in sharp clarity. The board members leaned in, eyes widening. A legal contract, the original investment agreement. $3 million transferred from my personal account to launch ClearTech, complete with terms outlining my role as a founding investor. I let the silence stretch, then, I spoke. As you can see, my contribution wasn't just a wife supporting her husband, it was a formal business agreement with explicit conditions regarding my involvement in company decisions, like, say, an IPO. James's jaw tightened. That was years ago. The company has outgrown that initial investment. I nodded. True, which is why I found it interesting that you systematically erased my contributions from official records. I clicked. The screen split. On the left, the original documents, contracts, emails, ownership percentages. On the right, the altered versions, the ones James had submitted to the SEC. Murmurs erupted around the table. Document falsification, in an IPO filing. A fireable and prosecutable offense. Melissa stiffened. This is ridiculous. You're just bitter because my husband used my family's money to build this company and then tried to erase me from it? I cut in smoothly. No, Melissa, I'm not bitter, I'm just well prepared. I clicked to the next slide. James paled. Displayed on the screen were financial statements, showing systematic fund diversions from ClearTech to offshore accounts, millions quietly moved over the past year. Would anyone like to explain these transactions? I asked, my tone light. Because I'm very curious why company funds were being moved to the Cayman Islands right before the IPO announcement. Richard, the board member, stood abruptly. Mr. Wilson, is this accurate? James's hand twitched against the table. These are complex financial arrangements for tax purposes, completely standard. I tilted my head. Standard? Is that what you told Melissa when you promised her shares from these accounts? When you planned to cash out together after the IPO? Melissa gasped. Her chair scraped loudly as she stood. How did you? Let's just say you should be more careful about what you discuss over company email, especially when the company's security system was funded by the person you were trying to betray. Chaos. Some board members were already on their phones, calling their lawyers. Others were demanding explanations. James's carefully constructed world was collapsing before his eyes. I raised my voice. You have two options, either we postpone the IPO and restructure the leadership to reflect ClearTech as true ownership. I closed my laptop and met James's frantic gaze. Or I take this evidence to the SEC. James stormed around the table toward me, his mask of composure cracking. Asterisk, you manipulative, he hissed, voice low, you're trying to destroy everything I built. I stepped forward, unflinching. No, James, I'm taking back what's mine, what we built, before you decided to throw me away. The board called for an emergency recess. As members filed out, I packed up my laptop, calm as ever. James stood motionless, Melissa gripping his arm, whispering something desperate in his ear. Richard, the senior board member, approached me as I turned to leave. Ms. Chen. I met his gaze, waiting. He hesitated, then offered a slow nod. Let's talk. I smiled. James had spent years underestimating me. That was his first mistake. His second? Thinking I wouldn't fight back. And now, he was about to learn exactly what I was capable of. Taking back what's mine. I think we need to have a longer conversation about your role in clear tech, Richard said, closing his folder. Perhaps over lunch? I smiled, shouldering my bag. I'd like that. I have quite a few ideas about the company's future. As I walked out of the boardroom, I caught a glimpse of James and Melissa locked in a hushed, heated argument. Their perfect plan was unraveling thread by thread, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. James looked up as I passed. For the first time since I'd known him, I saw fear in his eyes. This was just the beginning. He had thought he could discard me without consequences, but he was about to learn just how expensive that mistake would be. The fallout. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind: legal battles, emergency board meetings, corporate restructuring. From my temporary office on the 19th floor, not quite the penthouse suite James still occupied, but close enough to watch him squirm, I observed as ClearTech began to transform. The IPO had been postponed indefinitely. After my revelations, the board wasn't taking any chances. They brought in forensic accountants to scrutinize every transaction, every decision, every financial maneuver James had made over the past 6 years. What they found made my initial evidence look tame in comparison. They've uncovered at least 12 million in questionable transactions. Sandra, my lawyer, told me one morning over coffee. James wasn't just planning to cash out with Melissa, he was setting up a parallel company structure. He was going to use the IPO money to start fresh, leaving ClearTech as an empty shell. I stared out over the city skyline, letting the weight of her words settle in. And Melissa? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Sandra smirked. She's singing like a canary. Emails, texts, even recorded conversations. Turns out she's not as loyal to James now that his empire is crumbling. I wasn't surprised. Melissa's loyalty had never been to James, it had been to the future he promised her, and now that future was in ashes. Meanwhile, the press had turned the scandal into headline gold. Tech CEO's IPO dreams crumble amid fraud allegations. ClearTech founder's wife exposes multi-million-dollar deception. James, once a darling of the tech world, was now the poster boy for corporate greed. But I wasn't here for revenge. I was here for justice. And today, I was about to get it. The final reckoning. The board meeting's in an hour, Sandra reminded me, stacking her papers. Are you ready? I adjusted my blazer, smoothing the fabric. More than ready. The boardroom looked the same: sleek table, floor-to-ceiling windows, but the energy had shifted. James sat at the far end, his posture stiff, his usual confidence replaced with barely concealed rage. His lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently. Richard cleared his throat. As you all know, we're here to finalize the leadership restructuring of ClearTech. Following the independent audit and extensive legal review, the board has prepared a resolution. I kept my expression neutral as he read through the terms. James will step down as CEO. His offshore accounts will be frozen and investigated. I will be installed as executive chairperson, with final authority over all major company decisions. James shot up from his seat, his face red with fury. This is insane. You're giving her control of my company? I met his glare evenly. Our company. His hands curled into fists. Built with my family's money, my support, and my trust, I continued. Money you tried to steal, support you abused, trust you betrayed. Silence. The board members shifted uncomfortably, but none of them spoke in his defense. They had seen the evidence, they knew exactly how close they had come to going down with him. Richard's voice was steady. The resolution is fair. Ms. Chen's investment and early involvement were instrumental in building ClearTech. Her recent actions have protected not just her interests, but those of every shareholder and employee. The vote was swift. 10 in favor. 2 abstentions. None opposed. And just like that, control of ClearTech passed to me. As the meeting adjourned and people began filing out, James stormed toward me, his face a mask of bitterness. Congratulations, he spat. You've destroyed everything I worked for. I stood slowly, collecting my things. No, James, I saved what we built together. You're the one who tried to destroy it, with greed and lies. He let out a sharp, humorless laugh. You think you can run this company? You don't know the first thing about tech. I tilted my head. I know about trust, about building loyalty and keeping it. The technology might be complex, but the principles of good business, those are simple. I turned toward the door. Then glanced back, one last time, at the man I had once loved so completely. James Wilson, the golden boy of Clear Tech, reduced to nothing but a cautionary tale. Then, without another word, I walked away,